Oh Christ, this is hell. I've died and this is hell. Another hour staring into my apartment's decrepit wall, the wallpaper peeling and the beetles spilling out. My skin itches and I forgot how long I've been here. I should rightly be dead. I can't even remember the last time I ate. It's just me in this wretched place, accompanied only by my radio set up on a table in the living room, the static constantly buzzing in my ears. Sitting in this room, awaiting my orders. I eventually find the willpower to rise up from my mattress and leave the room. I go to the bathroom and observe myself for the first time in what I'm sure must have been days. I've become a pallid, gaunt thing, my flesh an abhorrent gray. I see myself twitching all over uncontrollably, and the beetles are on me. I swipe them off and return to my room, pulling a shirt over my head and climbing into a pair of pants. People shouldn't live like this, but it's become a necessity. I have to remain reclusive, and this place has served that purpose for now. I cannot venture out until I receive further orders, though they have become increasingly less frequent. Oh God, what if they've forgotten about me? Have I not been servile enough? Has my toil been for naught? These thoughts of isolation send my mind spiraling back into the abyss as I collapse to the floor sobbing. They've finally given up on me. I'm a worthless, diseased aberration dripping with impure thoughts and impure fluids. This is the curse of the flesh, I can't help it. And as these thoughts begin to gestate within me and reach their strongest point, my attention is drawn to a soft noise coming from just beyond my door. Oh, what providence, what divine wonder, they've come back for me! I rush out to the living room and stand over the table. The radio crackles out in a familiar voice.
The Delator has no further use for the simplest tools. They are a common blight, allowing only for further depravity. The weather calls for rain.
I breathe heavily. Oh, the Delator has spoken, and I have been granted a divine task. The cleansing process begins anew, and his intentions so clear. I hardly have to think on his words. I grab a roll of bandages and my knife. It is rusted now on the edges. It is cracked and rough, but it is my tool, the only one I could ever use for such a task. I stand in the bathroom before the mirror, gritting my teeth in anticipation. I feel my remaining toes curl up against the filthy floor tiles, the beetles crawling over them. I force my mouth open and grip my right canine tooth. I plunge the knife underneath it and close my eyes. I carve around it and eventually sever any ties to the gums, pulling the tooth out. I stumble out from the room, screeching in pain, and I collapse to the floor, gripping my wound as the blood slips between my fingers. But in my heart and mind, I know I have only served my master. I know I have served the purpose of cleansing myself, and that soon I would be made to cleanse others. Oh, what splendidity. What a divine gift. I place the tooth in a bowl in the kitchen. It contains 2 of the other teeth I was made to remove, as well as the toes and all of my fingernails. I wash myself in the sink and wipe myself off with the bandages. I then move over to the mattress and collapse. Hours later, I rise up and pace about the room. Passing time between work can be quite tedious. I had in this place only a handful of books that I have already read. I pull the curtains apart and look out at the city. It seems to stretch out as far as I can see. I do wonder how I maintain ownership of this place without any source of income. I've never spoken to any other tenants. I can't even receive any sort of payment, nor do I pay any, and yet I manage to survive on the meager food left outside my door each morning. I accept these as gifts of the Delator, ever caring, ever giving. As I become lost in contemplation, I am stirred by another sound from the radio. So soon after the previous.
The Delator is repulsed. The people are riddled with tumors and unsavory attachments. Proper cleanliness must be upheld in polite society. There are new films opening at the cinema.
My eyes widen. This is a good sign. And this is a wide demand. This could be the one that finally proves I'm capable of serving him elsewhere. Prove to him I am a worthy agent. Excitedly, I rush to the bathroom and grip the knife. Without hesitation, I slam my fingers against the counter and pull the blade over them, feeling it slide through the meat, the rigid edges grinding past the bone and exiting the other end. I close my eyes, the tears rolling down my cheek. I fall to my knees and soon lose consciousness. Dizzy, I drag myself out, barely lucid, and bandage my hand, keeping the blood inside. And I curl up in a ball in the center of the room, letting the night engulf me. I can rest once more, knowing I have succeeded. Surely now I am purified. I await the certain confirmation soon as I shut my eyes. The Delator has been silent over a month. I feel a disdain growing inside me. Was I not good enough? Was I ever truly useful to them? Was I never to be rewarded? In this enraged state of mind, I grimly stare into the silent radio, the ever-present chatter mocking me. I play with its dials before roughly pushing it aside, knocking over the chair and shouting wildly, "I've dedicated my entire adult life to this bloody thing, and it forsakes me? How is this just? What worldly pleasures have I been denied in that time? It has been too long since I felt anything pleasant. Only shame and pain in this miserable flesh. It's time to crawl out of the saturnine hole and do something. To hell with the Delator and his incessant demands. There's some form of social club right across the street, and I am constantly hearing its blaring noises and the drunken slurring of its refuse as they spill out into the streets. I'm going, and I don't care what the Delator thinks." I slowly open the door of the apartment and dart my head out, looking around. Though dingy and dimly lit, the corridor appears safe. I exit hesitantly, pulling the door shut behind me. The whole place appears to be tinted a dark green, the whitish lights flickering, and the place smelling of decay. I see flies buzzing all about as I cross, stepping only briefly before an apartment whose door is partially ajar. Perhaps now is the time to sate my curiosity. I cannot remember who I was before living here, nor even why I stay beyond a profound, inexplicable need. I push the door open to find it's empty, save a lone figure propped up on a chair. Even from here I can tell it is a corpse. I hear the distinct noise of radio chatter as they too are seated before a radio indistinguishable from my own. Confused, but still blinded by my anger, I descend the stairs. I enter the dark streets and look about the tall, neon-lit buildings all around me. I feel so small and insignificant, every bit as much as I did in the room. I cross over to the club where I am granted entrance. It's dark, illuminated only by flashing lights and the glint of flame at the tips of cigarettes. Reptiles. I'm surrounded by predatory reptiles, all gyrating about like some bizarre animals. They appear as one squamous mass of flesh, moving together in the room, closing in. They want me to join them in this bizarre ritual. I sweat profusely, my eyes darting about. How many of them are staring at me? Was I clearly an outsider? I have to fit into them. I begin to mimic their movements, though clearly I am doing so poorly. I eventually feel eyes all around, quick, uncomfortable glances. What's the deal with that spaz? What's his deal? Get away from that freak. I feel their judgment raining down upon me. Can I not escape this tyranny? Must I always be ruled as such? I can barely hear one woman say over the loud music that I was probably some sort of ghoul. "You repugnant sow! Your mouth is spilling with lies!" I shout suddenly as she turns in disgust. I am largely ignored once more, clearly attracting only disapproval. I spend much of the night in a shadow, unnoticed, and drifting about, a careful observer. It is with utter repulsion I realize this is not where I belong. This was a wretched cesspool of horror and of subhuman filth that would be spat upon by the Delator. I realize now what he had shielded me from. I leave, disgruntled, but pleased to be returning. As I'm crossing, I see the blasted thing that had offended me earlier, wandering home all on her own. Oh, the moment gripped me, and I knew I had to take hold. I follow her quietly. In her stupor, she hardly notices me despite my blatant gracelessness. I grab her unexpectedly, muffling her screams and pushing her face hard against the pavement. I thrust her into an alley and begin choking. In this moment of ecstasy, my hands around her neck, I know she has been purified. The Delator will take her now, as I have given her the greatest of gifts in my mercy. I remove all extraneous parts and leave her. I was wrong to mistrust the Delator, and soon return home, begging forgiveness. Every parasite needs a host. What if I'm the parasite? What if my body would be better off without me as a leech? We must be abstersive, cleansing like the Delator demands. These thoughts permeate my brain as I twitch and drool in the corner, having now removed my tongue, as was asked of me. I thought I had finally done enough, but the demands keep coming. It makes me question the Delator's motives. Must I die before I am truly able to serve him? Must I remove each and every piece of flesh connecting me to this mortal coil? I have to leave the city. I can hear its pulse growing louder and louder, the depravity growing stronger and slowly overtaking me. The Delator was right. I do need to be cleansed, and the corrupting influence was too much. I only have a small amount of money remaining from my past life. I use what I have to flee this hell and drive out far, far past the decaying ruins of the old city. Massive concrete structures, partially collapsed and ruined from an age gone by, overtaken with foliage and greenery. This old city, though ruined, was dense and largely uninhabited by any. It is here that I will stay. As I exit my car into the cracked street, I grip the radio tight against my chest. I can see the scurrying of vagrants, drifters and squatters taking up residence in these long-abandoned places, far from civilization. I pass beneath an overpass, pushing aside vines, and see a relatively intact apartment structure. You can tell it was built during the war. Its simple, functional design, it seemed ideal for my work. I can truly fulfill all of the Delator's demands now. After setting up all my things, I place the radio on the sturdiest table I can find. I adjust it and immediately hear the voice.
The Delator has many new growths, increasing rapidly. Do not trust friendly strangers.
No, this means the Delator is ready for me to become his agent. I have to go find him. I need to follow his directions. I turn the radio off and contemplate how I will cross over to his realm. I knew it would take time to shed from this form and ascend to that plane. And I knew it would be painful, but I will wait and I will endure. It does not take long before his grip has taken hold, and I am wrought with sickness unknown to me, a disease like no other. All I see are festering, wretched piles of human waste and death. I find myself disease tearing me apart as I collapse in agony, spewing all of my bodily fluids from my worn throat. I know I have made the transition as I lose consciousness and cease to breathe. Staring into strange vistas of another world, cold and barren, I know this to be his realm, crawling with carrion, feasting beetles and strange, elaborate foliage, the sound of otherworldly things echoing all about. Standing before this vast plain, I know I have found my home. I enter and drift past the lifeless husks of long-dead gods and cities lost to time and space. Oh, finally I am home. Finally I am free. I pass such immense and strange worlds of rot, withering beneath me, only to be built upon by new civilizations in an endless cycle. And it is atop a massive growth that I find him waiting. And it is now that I see him. The Delator, tall and gaunt, standing over the table before his great throne. He is unmoving, his face pallid and shriveled, his limbs long and bare, smooth and thin. He towers over me, appearing to be nearly 10 feet in height. He reaches out in a strange, alien fashion with his right arm, pointing in my direction. He calls to me, beckoning. I feel its touch as I disintegrate in his hands.